Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Aux Talks. It is Tuesday, March 26th, 2024. Hope you're having a productive day today. Apologize for missing a video yesterday. I think I mentioned Sunday evening when I did a video that this week has just been starting off extremely busy, a lot of new cases coming in the door. It takes time to meet with these clients, process the cases, get all the initial paperwork in order that's required by the state bar before I can represent a party or multiple parties. So a lot of logistics, a lot of paperwork, and I just got really slammed yesterday. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching the videos, subscribing. Please subscribe if you haven't. Share the videos with as many people as you can. The thumbs up, hit the thumbs up button and the bell notification so we can continue to wake up the algorithms as well on this YouTube platform. So again, thank you all of you for supporting the channel. I'm going to cover one major story today, one major event. I'm sure most of you have heard about this if you're paying attention to any of the news media sources, and that is the catastrophic bridge collapse that took place in Baltimore, Maryland this morning, about 8:30 or so, I believe, this morning. And I'm going to basically, I've pulled two sources. One is the Zero Hedge take on everything and more about the economic impact. And also CNBC actually did some extensive coverage on it as well. So I'm kind of going to be blending together information I pulled from both the CNBC article and from the Zero Hedge article. There is some overlap, but look, I want to get the point across. We talk about primarily on this channel, yes, economics and finance and some law stuff, health and fitness, but primarily I try to get the point across that we need to be prepared. I need to be prepared for whatever kind of events will come our way, whether it's an economic collapse, whether it's a grid down situation, whether you have unrest, whether you have a shutdown due to a natural disaster, violence in your area, whatever it might be. We have to position ourselves so that we can't anticipate everything, and you can't plan for every single event, but make yourself as resilient as possible. So I want to discuss this event today because this is going to have a huge economic impact across not only the East Coast, but even across parts of this country and the other ports in this country, including the West Coast ports. They're now going to have to absorb and transport a lot of these goods and cargo. So, and if you're in this area in Maryland or in Baltimore, I sure hope that you didn't have any loved ones or family on that bridge today that collapsed. But leave a comment down below if this is impacting you. If you have any further information to share with all of us here in the community, I would really appreciate it. Let me just jump right into it. It says a massive container ship chartered by Maersk and moving outbound from the port of Baltimore struck the Francis Scott Key Bridge around 1:30 Eastern Time today. The bridge collapse has paralyzed a large swath of the largest inland port on the East Coast, it says. The port is ranked 9th for total dollar value of cargo and 13th for cargo tonnage among all U.S. ports. It says Chief Kevin Cartwright, the Baltimore City Fire Department's Director of Communications, told Fox Baltimore that at least 20 people and several vehicles had fallen into the river. I watched some posts on X of this where it was being filmed, and there appeared to be several vehicles, passenger vehicles, trucks that were traversing that bridge, commuting or what have you, when the ship collided with it. And it took out a major pillar, and literally the bridge just collapsed into the water. Again, prayers for all of those that were directly affected or impacted being on that bridge during this incident. It says Maryland Governor Wes Moore declared a state of emergency in the state and was working to deploy federal resources. The bridge spans, it says, the Patapsco River and carries an estimated 11.5 million vehicles annually. In the collapse, the only shipping lane the only shipping lane in and out of the port was totally severed. Baltimore, it says, is the most inland port on the East Coast, and it's connected to the I-95 highway network with no commercial vessels sailing in and out of this port anytime soon. This is catastrophic for port operations and could spark supply chain snarls in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. We suspect inbound vessels are rerouting sales this morning. The bridge collapse has severed these major marine terminals. It's unknown when operations will be restored. And I want to talk about the potential trade impact and the impact to jobs in the area and the impact to the highways in and around the area, maybe up and down the entire eastern seaboard now. This is going to have far-reaching consequences from what I'm seeing and reading. It says this will have an impact for trade all along the East Coast and will continue until we know how quickly the port can reopen, said Richard Mead, editor-in-chief of the shipping journal Lloyd's List. The exports out of Baltimore, out of this port, include coal, natural gas, aerospace parts, construction machinery, agricultural components, and soybeans. It's the second busiest port for coal exports, according to part of the CNBC article. It says there could also be disruptions to coal supplies as well as to gasoline availability in the Baltimore area, since some ethanol comes in by barge and rail. It says, quote, gasoline shipped from the Gulf Coast refineries by pipeline is blended with 10% ethanol, which is delivered into the Baltimore area via train and barge, said Andy Lepew, president of Lipow Oil Associates. The oil industry will have to find alternative supply routes for those barge deliveries, which in the short term can be met by trucking it in from Philadelphia. Rail giant CSX, which moves much of the coal that arrives in containers at the Port of Baltimore, said Tuesday that customers should expect potential delays from the collapse. The Port of Baltimore is the top American port for the import and export of autos and light trucks, as well as wheeled farm vehicles and construction machinery. So according to the Maryland government's website, the Port of Baltimore handled, listen to this, over 52 million tons of international cargo, valued at more than $80 billion last year. It's the 9th busiest port in the United States. The data shows that the port handled 847,158 autos and light trucks during 2023, the most of any U.S. port. The port also handles farm and construction machinery, like we talked about, sugar, gypsum, and coal. The port supports 15,300 direct jobs and 139,180 jobs in Maryland, according to the Maryland government's website. So that's 155, almost 160,000 people have a job connected either directly at the port or somehow connected to the port operations. So again, if you guys are involved in that industry there with the Port of Baltimore and you work in and around that capacity, please leave your comment below. Let me know what you're experiencing. Let us know what you're hearing there on the ground. It says Bloomberg's Brennan Murray explains how the collapsed bridge blocking the only shipping lane in and out of Port Baltimore is about to spark a supply chain nightmare. An economic disruption along the U.S. East Coast is unfolding with potentially tragic human consequences after the container ship struck the Francis Scott Key Bridge. And it says nearly the entire roadway structure has crumbled into the water. The immediate priority, it says, is to the rescuers finding the people, obviously, who may have been on the bridge, either working or driving across. The ship, the Singapore registered Dali, was operated by charter company Synergy Group and is time chartered by Maersk, carrying Maersk customers' cargo. Of secondary concern, it says, is in the days ahead will be tough questions about the effect on business, commuters, holiday travelers, and the economy across the region. And I would even say not only across just the immediate region, but across the entire country, because all this stuff's going to have to be rerouted to other ports. So the Port of Baltimore is the biggest handler of U.S. imports and exports, we talked about this, of cars and light trucks. Looks to be out of commission indefinitely. I saw an estimate. They're saying already it could take over 2 years to re-engineer and rebuild this bridge. Not to mention they have to get the bridge components out of the waterway so that other ships can get in and out of the area. It says the resulting bottleneck could accelerate a shift of goods through West Coast ports. Another crucial question: which other ports have spare capacity to handle the overflow vessels that carry these automobiles if Baltimore is closed for an extended period of time? One of the very big logistical complications that it says in the Baltimore bridge collapse is that the Francis Scott Key Bridge was the main, listen to this, the main route for hazardous materials which aren't allowed to be transported through the tunnels. So the bridge was used to also transport hazardous materials. How are they going to rework that? Another issue that's going to have to be looked at. The supply chain snarls have sent major logistics companies scrambling across the East Coast, of course, as we talked about. There was well, let me talk about these two more data points. There's a major sugar refinery owned by American Sugar Refining Inc. warned its Domino Sugar Refinery only has 6 to 8 weeks of raw sugar supplies as the blockage affects ships moving in and out of the port. We also have major cruise ship terminals being affected here, so those cruises will not be able to obviously go forward, at least using that port in the meantime. So, and again, the estimate is over 2 years to reconstruct this bridge. I did see a post earlier that General Flynn, and General Flynn was former national security advisor under the Trump administration, and he did a interview, I guess, on Alex Jones' X channel today. I did watch that, and he says, quote, "Can we take the idea that this Baltimore bridge collapse was a terrorist attack off the table?" And absolutely says we cannot. He says we can absolutely not do that, end quote. Flynn called the container ship ramming the 1.6 mile long bridge at the Port of Baltimore a black swan event. I'm not going to weigh into that. There's already a bunch of theories out there, call them conspiracy theories or otherwise, saying that if you look at the footage, that it appears that the ship actually turned off its lights just prior to ramming into the bridge, and it looked like, depending on the angle, that ship was actually steered directly into the direction of this main support mechanism or pylon. Again, not going to weigh into that. You guys can go and look at all the stuff that's plastered on social media and come to your own conclusion. But at a minimum, there has to be an extensive investigation of who's involved, what happened, how did it happen? And it is shocking that with so many ships coming in and out of that port every day, that something like this would go that awry, that this ship would even be in that position, would have gone that far afield, that we would have this, catastrophe. As the current issue revolves around an emerging disruption in the mid-Atlantic supply chains, which now is totally paralyzed due to the mangled bridge, again, blocking the only shipping lane in and out of that harbor. So look at auto is going to be impacted, certain raw materials, vehicles, construction equipment, farming equipment. Let's see how this unfolds. I think I shared enough with you. There was nothing else I saw today that even comes close to the impact that this story this news has had today in the news cycle. So, again, it is something that what can you do to shore yourself up to protect against something that's happening in your area. And look, you have to have things set aside. You have to have extra fuel for vehicles. You got to keep those gasoline tanks full, guys. You don't let those tanks run down to below empty and then assume you can just pull up to the gas station and refill the tank. My tanks get down to, at the lowest a quarter tank, I refill them. I'm constantly on my family about not running the gas tanks down to zero. Again, have to have extra food and extra water and supplies on hand so that if the just-in-time delivery systems in your area get disrupted from any event, that you're not going to be vulnerable. You're not going to be stuck without having these things available for you and your family. So again, we know this, we talk about it. Here's another major event that happened today. Whether it was with nefarious purpose or intent or motive, I'm sure we'll see in the coming days and weeks, but the economic impact is going to be widespread. So at a time when our country is already reeling from high inflation, overpriced goods, delays, employment problems, layoffs, again, something else to pile onto to heap on top of the pile, I suppose. Anyway, praying for anybody who was impacted or family was impacted, by being in that area during this tragedy. And I'll continue to update you as this unfolds. That being said, I'll be leaving here in about an hour to get my workout today. I did get my half an hour on the treadmill earlier as well, so I'm getting the steps in. Please do the same, all of you. Get that exercise in daily if you can. It's so important to keep the diet strong and clean. It's easy to make tough choices, but it's also just as easy to make good choices about the kind of food that you eat, the portions that you pack down. All that stuff is within your control. Let's start becoming smart about this stuff, or smarter, and becoming healthier as a nation, as a country. Appreciate you all being here. I'll leave it here about not quite 18 minutes. I will see all of you tomorrow. Have a great evening. Bye.